Probably. Great evening last night, Derek.
Yeah, it turned out all right. Yeah.
Well done.
That being a short night and yeah,
Hey, for Michael.
yeah,
Always a bad thing.
yeah. It was high time it ran out.
It's all right.
I was reading the reports and it's like, oh gee, it's right there.
It's right there.
Great, well, we'll call our July meeting to order. Welcome everyone. Thanks for coming out. Great attendance to have everybody here. I don't need to look at the screen here as much. The agenda was circulated. Can I have a mover and a seconder to Jamie, second? Any more discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Minutes from the previous meeting. Everybody, 4.1. Everyone have a look at the minutes, see any errors, omissions. Sure that previous person should. All right, can I have a motion then to accept those minutes, April 25th? Moved by Councilor Huron and Hayden. Thank you. Any more discussion on that motion? All those in favor? Opposed? Running along. So the first thing up is 5.1, immigration survey presented by. Turn over to Mark. Thanks for being here.
I'm not logged into the online meeting, but it would be helpful if I could share my presentations. I'll do that.
Do you have it?
What's that?
Do you have the login?
Want things to go fast, and I do. Sorry about that.
I just sent it to you, so it should be.
I decided to crash.
Oh, that's.
Good.
At least crashed and walked.
Yeah, yeah. You want your.
Yeah.
Any chance it was the same one?
Yes. Yes, now. All right, so.
The immigration. No, I just logged in.
Okay, you need.
All right, thanks for bearing with me.
Mute the device and mute the Zoom. There's a double.
Okay, so the Immigration Partnership launched a survey of immigrants in Huron County and Pitt counties in November 2023. And we did this survey because we wanted to better understand what the experiences were of people who lived in our communities. And we wanted to also see how they were contributing to our community, also the challenges they faced, one of their suggestions on how we would improve the community. And also ultimately, the data was to inform or prioritize and improve future service delivery. We had a bit of guidance from Waterloo Region. Waterloo Region has been doing a survey of immigrants for quite a number of years. And so we took the survey that they do and we customized it with a working group of representatives from various organizations in Huron. We partnered with the University of Guelph, and the University of Guelph provided the research expertise and analysis and software to do the survey. We also had it approved through a community ethics review process to make sure the survey was doing no harm and that the research was credible. And then we disseminated with a number of partners taking part in that. So we had 195 people fill out the survey. 105 of those people were from Huron and 90 were from Perth counties. 65% we would consider newcomers. That means people who lived in Canada for less than 5 years, and they represented 49 different countries where they were born. We also had about an equal number of males and females fill out the survey. 81% of the people who filled out the survey can speak more than one language fluently. 71% had completed either college, university, or an advanced degree of some sort. And 90% said they could either understand, read, write, or speak English fairly well, or really well. Most people who filled out the survey were working, either full-time, part-time, or self-employed. 8% were unemployed and looking for work, and then another 12% were not looking for work and not employed. That means they were either a homemaker, a student, or retired. 1 in 3 immigrants volunteer in the community who filled out this survey. They were most likely to volunteer with an organization that was either religious or an immigrant newcomer organization. Many of the people felt like they belonged here in Huron County and that it was welcome, so 2 out of 3. And 2 out of 3 said they would recommend Huron or Perth, their community in Huron or Perth, to other immigrants to move here. We also asked people about their experiences with using government services. And so the top government service that people said they had a great experience with was libraries, followed by police. And so when we presented this to our Immigrant Advisory Council and our Immigration Partnership Council, they were both shocked by the number of positive interactions with the police, because often where people are coming from, police aren't your friends. So there's been a lot of work done by the local police detachment to sensitize immigrants before they actually need the police. So having those proactive friendly encounters was really important and contributed to that. Children's education was also highly rated, and recreation services. On the other end of the spectrum, we had settlement services and employment services, not as well rated by immigrants, although 79 and 77% has positive experience isn't bad either. We have had conversations and taken action on a couple of those things because we want to see those numbers improve for the future. We asked people about the top challenges they faced in the last year. And so almost half said they experienced some kind of cost of living or money problem, followed by finding a family doctor and finding affordable housing, availability of local transportation, finding work that matched the professional qualifications. So those were the top 5 challenges selected by more than 1 in 4. And then other challenges that were identified frequently were finding a place to live, finding food that is my cultural preference, making friends, finding other healthcare such as a dentist or optometrist. People just don't know where to go. So we often get asked this, we host these conversation circles at the libraries with people who are new to the area and who are learning English. And they often ask us, like, where do I go for a dentist? Where do I go to get my eyes checked? It's just not as easy as typing it into Google and having the answers. Like, they need that information that's a little bit more digestible. learning English is another challenge, and we've seen that quite prominently in the last year or so because the online delivery of English language classes is the only option available for adults. There's not in-person English language classes, which led to conversation circles being restarted in the community. Household income, we asked people about these challenges a bit more because we kind of predicted them. So we asked people, is your household income enough for the needs of your household? Many said enough and more than enough, but a good number said not enough. And so you can see that 36 people in Huron and 43 in Perth said it wasn't enough for their household. In terms of affordable housing, we use that 30% mark as are you spending more than 30% of your income on housing? That would be kind of unaffordable. So 27 people in Huron said no, it's not affordable, 31 in Perth. And then isolation and loneliness. This one was also a little bit of a concern because we did have quite a number of people who said, yes, I have felt isolated or lonely, somewhat, quite a bit, or a great deal. Those were the most common responses. So that indicates that there's more work for us to do on breaking down social barriers. Finally, we asked people what their top suggestions were for to make our community better for other immigrants. And so better programs for immigrants to find work or start a business was the top suggestion, selected by 34%, followed by the availability of public transportation and more affordable housing. Actions to increase welcoming and acceptance of immigrants and educating employers on hiring, retaining, and promoting immigrants. Those were the top 5 suggestions. So I'll leave it there, and I welcome discussion and questions and your thoughts. And as this research is here for consideration.
Thanks, Mark. Questions for Mark? Comments?
Mark, do you feel that libraries being the number one is because there's internet access there and it's free? Is it because there are services and meetings and groups like you mentioned out there?
I don't think it's necessarily the internet. Most people have some device that they are using already. So they have a phone. If they need a computer, that's where we can see them. I think it's this third space, or it's like a place where it's open to everyone. There's no cost to it. There's something to do. You don't have to justify why you're there. You can just hang out. And so it's a welcoming environment. And so I think that's a big part of it. When we have programs specifically for immigrants and newcomers, they're like, yeah, this is for me. I belong here. This is my place too. So we've seen when we did the conversation circles in Exeter and Goderich, like I'll often just pop in the branch and there's people hanging out who I know are going to conversation circle. But we've also done this in some other branches, not conversation circles, but programming that's specifically targeted towards newcomers. And when you do that, it opens it up and it's like, oh yeah, I can come here, I can hang out here. So I think that's part of it. Also, it's an information hub. Like the library staff are very knowledgeable. They know, they're frequently working with them. They know how to refer people to appropriate services and help people out when they've got a question.
I was surprised to hear you say there's no in-person English language classes in the county.
In the county.
It's not offered through a school board or?
Yeah, the school board offers them online. They were offering them in the past until about the fall of 2022. And then the federal government, the provincial government who funds English language classes said you must have at all times 10 students in a class, or you can't deliver this in person.
Well, you can, but we're not gonna pay.
Right. That's right. So that's led to them saying, well, we just can't, and we know from our conversation circles, there's ebbs and flows. So they also have restrictions on who can enter a conversation circle. So if you're a temporary worker, you wouldn't qualify for funding. It's just
That is crap.
Yeah.
That's horrible. That's really.
I
that's a
hear you.
horrible thing.
And that's the nice thing about the conversation circles is there's no, you have this visa, so therefore you can't come.
Okay, I have very strong feelings about what we're doing with international students and immigration and that whole funnel. This is not the right venue for that, but I'd love to have a follow-up conversation about availability of English language programming and what we could do about that. There must be a way.
Yeah, so the Goderich Library this summer is doing a pilot because they've seen the conversation circles, we're taking a break. They're delivering an online weekly module for people who are learning English to say like, here, we'll help you. They're lucky they have a staff member who is an ESL teacher. So they can offer that service, which is great. But yeah, it's certainly a gap and people are missing those social connections that they would have in the classroom.
And it inhibits their ability to find better employment and engage in the community and move ahead, which is why they keep in. One last, if I may, interesting about their response to, we'd like to have better programs to help us find work or start a business. Any additional information about what kind of work or business? Because when I look at, as an employer, we're starving for people, but maybe it's not the right kind of job. So do you have a sense of?
Don't have that data. We do have data to say a lot of people aren't employed at the same level as they were
Of course,
at their previous experience or training. So that's one of the things that we would say, oh, well, maybe they're looking for that, but it's an area where we'd like to see more growth. Since this survey was conducted, we worked with College Boreal, which is a French language service, and they have an officer with employment breakers Huron. We thought he's multilingual, so he speaks English, French, Spanish, Portuguese.
that's right. Yeah, I think I met him at the drive up.
Yes,
Yeah,
yeah, that would be him. He is now doing in-person once a week service delivery in the Goderich Library. And it's specifically for immigrants. He's also now frequently, because of the requests, it's like when people know something's for them, if immigrants know the service is for them, they start using it. And so now he's got lots of requests, he's going to Exeter on a regular basis. So those services are needed. And when it's in urban spaces, there's lots of employment specifically for immigrants and employment services, whereas we just don't have the volume here to offer. But once a week is great. It's a great start.
Thank you.
If I could through you, Mr. Chair, great work, Mark. When we welcome new Canadians into our county, this follow-up to see their feedback is so important to us to address issues. And the fact that the libraries are seen as a safe place, what we want.
A question for you on how we compare to other counties. So you got Huron and Perth. I'm sure there's other surveys made exactly in Wellington and wherever. Are we in the pack with the group? Are we ahead? Do we have some real soft spots?
It's a great question. And so we've pulled the research that, because similar surveys were doing done in Waterloo, Hamilton, Wellington, Bruce Gray. And I thought, oh, well, let's see if there's trends, for rural areas, rural areas, it's not, it's all over the place.
Oh.
And so I wish I could say oh, it's a trend that, people feel like they belong more in a rural area. It's not. I wish I could say that, the cost of living problem is more accentuated in an urban space. It's not. It's just depends on the community, and it could depend on who filled out the survey as well.
Mark, I just wondered, other than the libraries, were you able to recruit people to do the survey from other sources, or was it just?
And we used a lot of different spots. So we had the libraries disseminated the settlement services. So that's run by the YMCA in both Perth and Huron counties. They disseminated it. We had our outreach officer go drive from business to business that were owned by immigrants to make sure that they knew about the survey. We advertised in newspaper and radio. We had also community ambassadors, so people who were from a specific cultural group, we disseminated it amongst people within the cultural group to make sure that people filled it out as well. Yeah.
And I also wondered, are you finding there are like, I don't know what cultural clusters in the county? Like, is there becoming a bigger group of us from a certain culture, like if you're immigrating, you'll go to where your family or people of the same culture will sort of settle. Are you finding that here or is it?
I think there's networks, so they're not formal, they're informal networks. So there's like, for instance, a Filipino network, and they get together and have birthday parties and celebrate Christmas together. And like, if you're in the network, you feel included. And as soon as we hear new Filipinos like moving to the area, we're like, contact this person. They're this basically social committee organizer. And then Ukrainians, it's been the same. We've helped foster that a lot. So when the Ukrainians were arriving, we had to get them together because they were too dispersed and they didn't know each other existed. But we were able to host get-togethers. Like we're hosting in a couple of weeks this newcomer day at Camp Kalani. And it was the first chance where people could meet each other from the various parts of the county. And that helps them establish those connections. And then we had a number of potlucks over the first few months that they arrived. And that allowed for those connections to be made. So those two groups I can speak to, other social and cultural groups I can't.
More questions? Thank you, Mark. We have a motion that the chair and members of the Economic Development Board receives a report from Mark Noakes, Immigration Partnership Manager, dated July 4th, 2024. Federal Huron Immigration Survey as presented for information. Kind of mover and seconder for that. I'll do that. Yeah. Any more discussion on the motion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Right, so we're going to up to 6 on the agenda. First thing under the chair's comments is that via the grapevine, I heard that Rick here has now been with the county and economic development for 10 years.
Longer than that.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't know how they got 10, Deacon. Even that is 12. Yeah.
Wow, we should have did this 2 years ago. Anyway, congratulations. Nice to be recognized and appreciated. As Vicki and I talked about, the economic development program is relatively new in the stream of the county. And so it's great to have staff members that have been out of that. And we really appreciate the contributions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's good.
Definitely. Right. Living my best life, yeah.
Also, we wanted to congratulate the staff on the multicultural festival that just finished up. Something that went very well. Thank you to all those that were involved. I'm not sure who it was, but yeah, I think the staff continue to hit things out of the park. That's well appreciated. Couple other things, as many of you know, Natasha did have her baby, Emin, if I'm pronouncing that right. So congratulations to her. And also, Dr. Lass had a great granddaughter, May. If
She is great, but she's only a great.
Great.
I knew that granddaughter.
There are days I feel
Yeah.
like.
Yes. thing I wanted to ask the group is, Goderich, and I want to say the county hosted the Lancaster to come back to Goderich Airport. And it was a fabulous event. Even when people like me get stuck in traffic, we were so excited when they finally got there that it was just incredibly well received. My question is, as an economic development board, we helped fund the study for the Goderich Airport. Is it kosher for us to send congratulation letters to the Legion, Alliance, and HOPA because we've been involved? Now, the risk is obviously somebody else does something great, maybe we weren't directly involved or indirectly. Anybody want to speak to that?
I don't think it's ever a bad idea to congratulate people. Certainly the Legion put a lot of hours into organizing everything and the other groups as well, but yeah, I don't think they're a bad idea.
See a downside to congratulating
No.
anybody or thanking anybody.
So is that something we just go ahead and do or do?
You setting it up, yeah.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
That's what we're gonna do.
If I can comment on it, Mr. Chair, that was, as you alluded to, a tremendous event. When you talk about economic development, it's so good in so many ways. To see so many youth there, they lined up for 2.5 hours to see the Lancaster. Speaks volumes.
People were talking about it all over.
Oh,
Yeah.
just
Way down south in St. Joe's.
so-
It got us far. Yeah. So you get over.
Just to Rick, there was some discussion at the Goderich Airport Committee meeting about the economic impact of the event that brings in 8,000 people. Maybe contact you about that if you haven't already. I don't know if you have multiplier effects, but
We know the average spending, but like when it's a day trip like that, and also if we don't know whether they were coming from the county or from outside, it's difficult. But we know that there were people. We can make an educated guess.
and that's all, but yeah, that's, I expect good contact.
Right, so we have a motion on the table. Any more discussion? All those in favor of that? Opposed? Very much. Checking off my list here. One thing that Vicky and I talked to, actually I talked to the password again previous about his trip to Denmark. And I asked him if he would be willing to share some details of that with the group, so. We're going.
Yeah, sure. So it was a trip that kind of came up last minute. So the Danish, I've done that before. Danish consulate takes a few trips to show off basically their anaerobic digesters. They call it biogas over there, and they're really building this out. They now produce 40% of the natural gas that's used in Denmark, and their goal is to get to 100% by 2030. So this program started in about 2017, so they're going fast. And so anyways, there was a delegation that was to go from the States to Denmark. Last minute kind of thing, a few of them backed out, so they're opened up some spots. And we've had some interest from them in our former Blue Water Youth Center. So both the deputy mayor and myself from Central Huron went. There's also a gentleman he's actually from the premier's office at PEI that also went on the trip. But so it was geared toward the Americans, and not everything on the trip was what we needed to see, but because it was agriculture, I got it all and put it all in. And they said, make sure they like pointed questions. So first question I asked was a little pointed and they didn't actually like it that much. But the way they do things, and I was surprised because everybody was talking the same points when we get to Denmark. But what they do is they get all the organizations together, they lock them in the room, they let no news out until they have an agreement, and everybody comes out singing the same songbook. And anybody can decide whether that's a good way of doing things or not, but like I said, everyone was talking the same points. So we did tour for 5 days, and we saw a number of the biogas plants, different types of ones. One was strictly food waste, and they would take, you know, a plastic bag out of your garbage can in your kitchen, and you just put it in a bin, and they took it. They had the technology to actually separate the food waste from the plastic. It went out one direction. The food waste came out the other way. And they were making the biogas from that. The plant that we were in needed or was servicing about 500,000 households. I think now I'll say 500,000 people. Anyway, it's too big for something that we might want to do in Huron County, but it was interesting to see all the technology. And I found a lot of irony, and maybe it was because of this locked door philosophy they had, but once they separate out of plastic and they're doing all this great stuff, they actually burn. And it's like, it didn't seem right to me. So cans, everything, yeah. And anyways, then they pulled the metal out of the remains, and the ashes were mixed in with their asphalt in road construction, which we found interesting.
May I ask, when they burn it, do they use like a pyrolysis process with the filter system and then capture the steam to produce energy for example, the greenhouse industry or anything like that?
We didn't get into the discussion of that. There was a pile of plastic in the corner, and I'm sure they took it to another plant, and which we didn't see, so I can't answer that question. But also, they used a lot of the animal manure and crop residue in these digesters. The way they worked it, they would go out and pick up liquid or solid manure from farmers. They did not pay the farmer anything. They took it back, processed it, took the natural or the methane out of it, and then they would return it to the same farmer and spread it for them. So that was the payment, was to spread it on fields. And it seemed to work pretty well. The farmers didn't, it was quite acceptable to the farmers group. So, what else can I tell you about? There was most plant for that way, and that was something that would work at a water use center because of you know, how big agriculture is in Huron County. But they had one technology that really fascinated me. And they had an electrolyzer, they were making hydrogen and carbon dioxide, and they were feeding it into this, essentially a silo, with some plastic pellets and microbes. And they were making natural gas out of that. So no agricultural byproducts at all. It's just carbon dioxide and hydrogen. And at first when I first saw it, I was like, why are they doing this? You're taking electricity, you know, to make natural gas, to burn, to make electricity, and it just didn't seem to make sense to me. But when I got thinking about it, you know, in Canada, we've discussed this a fair bit, and, you know, if we're going to move to all electric economy, you know, we're gonna have to make massive infrastructure expenditures in possibly more nuclear power plants or more hydroelectric dams for more renewable energy. We got to, you know, grow our hydro grid, and you know, a lot and convert houses off of natural gas. Whereas if you know, do this and make natural gas without any other feedstocks, you can pump it into the pipelines and really you don't have any infrastructure developed. So, yeah, so once I thought about it a little more, it started to make a lot more sense. And now I think that could be a real game changer in the world that technology is. I got a question down there, Mr. Chair.
Oh, yeah, if I could add to that, there was a group that went through Vanastra, I'd say, or this area, maybe ACDEP knows about it. I'd say maybe 8 or 10 years ago, and they're looking to do one of those plants, biodigester. And they looked at it and said, Vanastra, I still have the contact information. I can give it to you if you like after the meeting.
Yeah.
The shortcoming where we had Vanastra was the proximity to homes. But their biggest problem was the proximity to homes and then being able to get the natural gas, the finished product out on the line. And they were fortunate at Highway 4, you could plumb into it.
Yeah. Where else should I go with this? I don't know if now maybe just open it up for questions at that point. Yeah, I think that's the main points.
The one thing that hits me and coming from agriculture and agribusiness, I assume digesters are only, you know, something that would operate in farm. Obviously, you know, they're doing things with food, other products. So, I mean, there's a lot more opportunity there.
The ones we toured were all off farms. And they talked about it a little bit because the Americans that were in the group, there was some from California where they have very large dairy herds, right? And they had the digesters on farm. And then their problem was to gather all this, you know, pipe it into a central area where it could be put in the main trunk lines. So everybody's approaching it a little different way. One, the processed anaerobic digester really is pretty much the same through all the different, you know, food stocks or whatever they're putting into it. It's pretty much the same, all of the technology, and we have it here. It's just what they do with it after the fact that makes it kind of unique.
Derek's good.
Were they profitable or what kind of subsidization did they take to keep solvent kind of thing? Because there's Danish companies wanting to do these central site digesters around all over Ontario. They got big plans, but looking at the financials and their business plans, there is no return on it. And the return is all in selling carbon credits to California at a 3-time multiple what carbon credits are selling domestically. So I think there's good technology. I just don't know what the finances are. I don't like, maybe their hydro is that much more expensive there that it returns better, or how does that work?
Carbon credits are certainly in play there. And you know, we never really got into the finances of these. They are privately owned. And I don't think directly subsidized by the government. I mean, people we talk to, the CEOs of the companies are looking to invest in North America. But yeah, and I don't know exactly, you know, how they were selling their carbon credits, but it was definitely part of the equation, yeah.
Yeah, it was like without the carbon credits being sold at a California base, these things were massively in the red. So not to say it doesn't work, but it just, yeah. One stroke of the pen and we can't sell carbon credits to California. It doesn't work.
Any other questions or? All right, well, thanks. Appreciate you sharing that with us. Last thing I had here is I just wanted to thank the warden and the county for inviting the board members out this afternoon for a bike ride. Over to, hopefully there's a few others. I'm gonna stay for it, so.
Glad to have you.
Great day for it.
7 then is board member comments. But yeah. Oh, yeah, Jim.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Just some comments for consideration of the board. We're coming up this fall on the halfway point through county council term. And in consideration of some board member changes coming, I wondered if it would be worth considering a review of the purpose and the structure of this board. Consider it to be a midterm health check. I always think those are a valuable thing to look at. And just, you know, what are we doing? How are we doing it? And is there any way that we can be more effective? So I just wondered if there'd be any appetite to just do an internal health check of our board and where we're going.
That's something that the board has done biannually or? How would you do?
I think that'd be up to Director Lust. What that might look like, or I think it's gonna be.
I've had some high level strategic conversations in the last couple of years, but I am not opposed to doing a sort of a strategic planning activity with the board. To make sure that we're looking closely at what the department is doing. We're starting to look at our next strategic plan. And making sure that we're aligned with the priorities of council. So if the board is interested, I have no problem leading an activity later this term to take a look at. Obviously we'll look at what's stated in our terms of reference as to what we're doing, but also I think more on the ground to take a look at that. It ties nicely with our development of our next strategic plan.
So does it make sense we leave it with you and then?
I think there might be some.
Oh, okay.
I think as a newer board member, it's always helpful to understand from staff perspective as well, are we doing what you need us to do? So we can look at the terms of reference and we can see this here for but how are we doing? Are we doing a good job for the reason we exist? And if not, just that, how can we do better? Is it effective? Because as a volunteer, you want to contribute, right? You want to hear this difference.
For comments? Is it all right if we leave it with you and then?
I just have a comment, like, terms of reference will be supported, I believe, have to be supported by county council, right? So, what we can do in the board itself may be somewhat limited by that. The terms of reference has to be.
Yeah, and I'm not necessarily suggesting we reopen the terms of reference. We have done that recently. My suggestion is more around when we look at the activities of the board. So since I came on as director, we added SLED as a board activity. We've added opportunities for judging starter company panel, for example. We've had some working groups and we're working towards implementing those, but I don't think it ever is. I think because we're coming up to the department's next strategic plan in preparation for that, that it's worth looking at what activities or focus could the board have that works with what we're doing, enhances what we're doing, brings value, and also what value we bring to those who dedicate their time to working on the board. So I'm not opposed to, I would frame it as an action planning or strategic planning sort of activity.
And generally, that's so. So how are you looking at the structure of the board, or are you looking at tasks that the board is doing?
Specifically, the tasks that the board is doing, and is there ways we can be more effective, or are we being as effective as we can be? And structure of the board, I think, is a discussion that can pop up at any time, but it's limited to how we can deal with it, and I recognize it.
So if we're Vicky's right, what you're doing and how you do it, absolutely, Vicky, and the boards, if you start changing structure of the board and you have a bunch of vacancies right now, then that would have to go to county council. And they would have to approve it, and our procedural bylaw will have to be amended, and then we don't have any place, et cetera. So there's they're combined, but they're two very different things. One involves a great deal of red tape.
And,
So,
and
which is
And I recognize that very much. And so my thoughts were, because we had some vacancies on the board, it's maybe worthwhile to just look at where we're at. I recognize the two different directions there.
I would suggest we start with strategic planning and then when we determine what the activities and the focus of the board should be, if the board feels it should go further, we can discuss that at that time. It might help narrow down your choices as well for some board vacancies. Or focus in on what we do need to recruit. Right, what's the skill set that, what's the skill set that we need?
I guess I'm just wondering, is there a similar board within the county that has to follow the same terms of reference or similar terms of reference that have gone through a similar process? And also, are there concerns that this board is not following the appropriate terms of reference and procedures and policies that are set out for it to follow? So, you know, I guess what I'm saying is there a reason we should do this? Are there concerns the board is not doing what it should? Because we are limited with respect to those policies in terms of reference that are set out by the department and ultimately by the county, correct? Like that's usually how boards run, right? Like boards are usually restricted by all of that. So are there concerns that this board is not doing what it's supposed to do again?
So coming from me, that was not my intent at all
Okay.
to suggest that, no.
Okay.
It's a proactive health check.
I'm just a firm believer that we're coming up halfway through our county term.
Mhm.
I think it's a good time to reflect and look forward both.
But currently no process exists, from my understanding, that we could follow to ensure that we are doing, I guess, to ensure that we are doing what we're supposed to do. There's currently no process to do that check.
So, the county has very few committee forms, so accessibility committee, library committee, this one. Anyway, and then there's a bunch of subcommittees as well, that are slightly different. They all run within the framework of our procedure bylaw, which does the guidance under the municipal act of what you should and should do, okay? As far as the tasks and the strategic plan of each committee, that's entirely within their scope. Okay, so I'm asking CEO, she doesn't want to comment on that because she's far better at this. Has a good stuff up there too.
Yeah. Yeah, no, we have lots of different committees, lots of different ways to go about doing a health check, and really it all depends on the committee that you have in place, right? So this is fairly unique, It's similar to the library board in some ways. And yet also there are differences in the way it's structured. So I would just suggest that Vicky is a genius at facilitating conversations with individuals. I think we do have to be careful that a certain amount of the direction does come from county council in relation to the work that happens at this table. And what we don't want to do is create challenges between the relationship between this group and county council. There are no challenges right now. We're working away at what county council has indicated they would like us. County council goes through a strategic priority setting process, beginning of their term. And that then helps Vicky to understand these are the parameters within which I am providing guidance to the board, who then do the work on behalf of the community. So we need to be careful about that, but I also feel as if Vicky's a genius, that sort of thing. So she will be able to, we have to be careful when we ask questions that we're prepared to the answers then. And those answers need to align with where county council stands. So that's the long and short of it. So you may notice alignment in our monthly report under each item. It'll say
council priority youth or council priority welcoming community. So we tie all of our activities, trying to show where we support council priorities, which are on the wall above the fridge and the coffee maker, so that we can look at them numerous times a day and see to. But it's always good to do that strategic conversation around making sure we are aligning and that this board's work also aligns to support and enhance the work of the department. So since we're coming up to the renewal of our strategic plan, that is the route I would suggest, is that we talk about those strategic priorities, keeping in mind the department and county council.
Just have another question, Vicki, with respect to strategic planning within the department. How, if any, or how much is the board involved directly in that process? Do you ask board members to participate in that?
We didn't last time, but
I just wondered, yeah,
Yeah.
I just wondered.
the strategic priority setting is done on that, like county council, they sit together
Yeah.
for, it's about 2.5 days, they sit down and there's a
Oh, I
process that
see.
they follow.
Okay.
And, you know, some of the priorities are things like welcome communities, fiscal responsibility, wanting to explore green energy initiatives, wanting to ensure that there is youth engagement, all of those kinds of things, broad strokes. And then what we do as a staff is we operationalize. We come back to county council to say, okay, this is what we've understood. Here are the, 5 to 10 things that we're suggesting within each of those buckets almost. And some of those specific initiatives will be part of Vicki's bucket or her work plan that she then uses a variety of audiences, whether it's this group, whether it's staff, whether it's some of the committees, for example, Mark's committee to work with we use whatever tools we have available and constituents that we have available and supporters that we have available to us in order to move those forward. And then we report back to county council on them. So really that's that, as to Warden Ginn's point, that's the fine balance that we have. Like if, for example, the board came back and said, absolutely, we want to have nothing to do with youth. Well, not that the board would, but for example, we have to be careful about that, right? Because ultimately we as a body report back to county council and, so maybe it's not going to be the number one thing that we're working on as an organization, or as a group. But we need to provide good justification for that, in my opinion, because county council ultimately is who we report to. Okay.
Everybody comfortable leaving it there? Good.
Okay.
Just because you're requesting another session of we continue to support and have a session.
Yeah, we can call it a strategic planning session. Yeah, I think so. And I think Vicki, everyone's like part of this is doing a health check and taking a look at the that we're currently doing and report back on that.
Yeah, that's, so the motion would be that the Huron County Economic Development Board requests staff to organize a strategic planning session for the board.
We could send out, we have a strategic priorities chart that comes to county council every month, every meeting, every month. And it might give everyone on the committee here kind of an idea of how county council looks at it. And each department will have 3 or 4 reports that they need to bring back in the next 6 months or a year. And we just help the non-county councilors understand a little bit more about how it works.
And also we circulate council priorities. The
That's great.
documents that
Yeah,
we have some those as well.
Yeah.
Yes. We've circulated it before, but it's always a good refresh. So happy to Yeah, and again, the top 10 is ultimately, council comes back with the top 10 of their priorities for 4 years. And we'll do a health check on that. As the new ordinance in place, we'll do a health check and make sure, like, we're good. These are the 10 priorities, these are the things. So forth. And this is what we've accomplished thus far. But not all of it, obviously. Vicky won't own all of it. It will be, every single one of the directors will have some more than others, no doubt, but every single director will have responsibility for some of those items.
Okay, so we have a motion crafted for us. Seconded by Jamie, seconded by Derek. Any more discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Great, thank you very much. That's right. Next thing is correspondence, and usually I'll say, well, we don't. But I got one. So we got a thank you letter from Gateway for the support they received through the SLED program. So I'm not to steal your thunder, but they did take time to send that thank you, appreciate it. And I did have quite a few verbal comments from people that appreciated the support and meant a lot. We'll hear more later, so it's our correspondence. Anything under 9, new business or unfinished business? Get right into it then. We're lucky to have Alicia here with us today, and she's going to give us a report for 2024 Maple Meet.
Morning. Thanks for having me. Computer issues this morning, so no slides. But I'm okay to just have a conversation.
Like,
Yeah.
share your screen.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. All right, let's get right into it. So we hosted the second annual Maple Mania Saturday, March 9th and Sunday, March 10th, which we're gonna talk about this morning. Seems like a lifetime ago because we've had a lot of it since then. We have, but yeah. But I'm excited to share some of the things that happened, some of the really great things that happened during Maple Mania this year. So the event saw a total of 1,195 participants, and they attended 9 events at 7 sugar bushes across the county. Each of our participating sugar bushes offer a really unique insight into the art of maple syrup making. This year, we had sugar bushes involved again across the county, including Amalgamation Acres Legacy Maple, Bayfield Maple, Blythe Creek Maple, Coastal Coffee, Freedom Syrup, Robinson's Maple Products, and Show Me Maple Syrup. With our partners in cultural services, the event also featured 4 engaging and family-friendly programs across the county, including a balloon magic show, which happened at the Huron County Museum. We also had 2 birds of prey demonstrations. We had 4 decorating sessions. And thanks to Warden McNeil for being one of our judges at the Great Maple Mania Bake Off. And we had 5 wonderful businesses present their maple offerings to a very excited live audience. 13 Huron County restaurants participated in our Maple Mania dining program this year. So they presented distinct and inventive maple infused dishes from March 7th through till the 17th. And they served an impressive 730 dishes in that time. And that is a 52% increase since 2023, which is really incredible. Additionally, we attend cafes and bakeries, provide amazing maple treats during the event. And back again this year, we had 2 pancake breakfasts, which happened on this Sunday. One, we were able to partner with the wonderful Auburn District Lions Club, and they hosted a sold-out event at the Auburn Community Hall. And the other pancake breakfast happened at Bad Apple Brewing. They partnered with Bayfield Maple, and that was also a sold-out event. Regarding marketing and promotion, Maple Mania posters were widely distributed across the county, and coverage was featured in both the Blythe Citizen and Bayfield Breeze. we ran promotional radio ads on 2 different radio stations, and those were complemented by some morning show interviews to create excitement for the event. We had a lot of action on social media with engagement. It was really impressive this year. We were able to have a Facebook reach of over 84,000 and an Instagram reach of over 6,000. And those resulted in over 2,000 link clicks directly to our website, which attracted over 3,200 visitors. And the top locations of visitors were from Toronto, Goderich, Clinton, Bayfield, and Exeter. So in 2022, Community Futures Huron had one-time federal funding to support this event, and we hired a coordinator. This year, we produced the event using county staff time and from some funds from the Economic Development's approved 2024 budget. So this event could not have been made possible without the eager participation from and strong collaboration with our maple syrup food service. They are incredible. They put their own time and resources into this event and helped with marketing and were so enthusiastic. So we just really appreciate that partnership. Overall, Maple Mania was successful, attracting significant participation, and we're able to produce a really great event that happened with our tourism shoulder seasons. I welcome questions or comments from anybody.
Yeah, I just say it's a little more than just successful. I think we definitely knocked that out of the park. And I think the increase in numbers and the likes of that quite.
Great that you have the data to report on.
Yeah.
Last year, that's really helpful. I had a shoulder season about that.
If I could add a couple comments. So the restaurant dining program, the 730 menu items that those participating restaurants were able to sell. We did do a post-event survey and we asked, like, do you want to just keep doing this, or do you want us to do like a Huronlicious or a Winterlicious program? Do you want to do something in February and March? And the feedback was unanimous that they really like the Maple Mania. It's really easy to create maple themed menu items in March. And they find that their customers are ordering, obviously. So they would like us to just keep doing that because that supports them in that off season for us to.
Yeah, I think that's true. I went to Part 2 Bistro and had a drink with maple syrup in it and food. And I mean, we went because it was Maple Mania. Restaurant was good. Right, so I do believe it gives them something to help sell. So I think that it's perfect.
I wonder, the restaurants would consider like November shoulder season as well, and whether there's been any thought.
Christmas, they're both.
Yeah. So really, the only real shoulder for them, is like everybody
January,
closes in January, right? So. And you see in the county, a lot of restaurants will take the time off in January, early February, just to give themselves a break. Because holiday season is really busy.
Well, you don't get it right in time.
No. Thank you.
If I could through you, Mr. Chair, just compliment our staff, this is amazing. Work that you do and the way it's received and the image that it does for Huron County. It's amazing, building on our maple industry. Awesome, well done.
Yes.
I just want to give a comment if I may. And staff can give more details, but I think what's also important about this, and Alicia alluded to, is when council did their strategic priority setting, one of the challenges to staff was fiscal responsibility and trying to look at ways that we could offset the costs of some of our programming to have less burden on it. And so as Alicia mentioned, the first year was fully supported through external funding. And we talked about a model where we help a sector and industry get started by leading with them cooperating with us to run an event, or as Maple Mania as the example. But then the second year, we work alongside them, but we encourage them to invest and participate and learn to lead. And then, so lower cost. And then we get to a point where the sector is really independently
working in this space without as much investment from the county to run the event. And so there was a significant reduction in cost. And that came at staff time being invested as well, but there was a significant reduction in cost and a significant increase in investment from the maple producers themselves to run this event. So I think the model, it been tested with Maple Mania, and I think Rick and Alec can comment, but I think they felt that it worked successfully to reduce the cost. But the quality was still maintained. The maple syrup producers felt more confident in what they were doing. So I just wanted to comment that it is a model we're looking at to improve costs on the levy, but still offering pro-margin. If you want to make any further comments.
Sure, I, for me personally, it really did feel like a collaboration. It didn't feel like it was our event or their event. We just really worked together, and they were willing to show up to all of the meetings and say, you know, what can we do? How can we help? And they were really engaged. Anything that we sent out, they were sharing or, you know, telling everybody, putting up posters, helping us design marketing materials. So yeah, it really did feel like a collaboration with the producers. Yes.
There was still a large investment of staff time, but helping a sector to learn how to, instead of doing for. So it was collaboration with the idea that as they learn more, they can move down the road. So kudos to staff.
Great, so we have a motion that the Economic Development Board received a report by Alicia Anderson, Coordinator of Tourism and Local Food, dated July 4th, 2024, titled Maple Mania 2024 report as presented for information. Have a mover and seconder for that. Any more discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. So next up is 9.2, the 2023 Tourism Annual Report presented by Rick.
So again, this feels somewhat dated at this point. So we'll fly through it. I may go off script a bit, Susan, and talk a little bit about what's happening in 2024. I'll start by talking about the tourism impact. We were lucky enough to have support from RTO4 to do economic impact study of tourism for Huron County in 2023. So what that entailed is Ipsos did the work, and they called several hundred visitors to Huron County who visited in 2022, and then they collected that data. Why that's significant is that the province used to provide us with tourism economic data up until 2017, and then they stopped and they said they're never doing it again. So we had no data anymore. We had anecdotal from our stakeholders, like we're busier for higher sales this year. But we really had no evidence or data saying how many visitors and what they were spending until we got this report. So it did find that we had in 2022, based on 2022, 1.2 million visitors to Huron County a year, and that total visitor spending was about $116. So to the earlier question, the median spend for overnight visitors is $759. That's what they found that the median person is spending when they're staying overnight in Huron County. When you average that with the day trippers, and we do have a lot of day trippers, again, if you're a young family, the free beaches for the day is the amazing opportunity. It works out to about $215. That is the median that visitors are spending. You can find day trippers together. We brought back the Tourism Summit in 2023. That got rolled into the Thrive Summit this year, and that will continue to just get rolled into the Thrive Summit, I believe, going forward. So we don't have to hold a separate tourism summit. The visitor guide, that's the 2023 visitor guide. This is the 2024 visitor guide. There are lots out there if you haven't seen one. Why not, please?
Or if you want to take some along, place in your business.
Distribute to all your friends and family.
Chiropractor, dentist,
This isn't in the report, but there's also a new hiking guide this year. We update it every 3 years. There are 5 new trails, 3 of them are Huron County Forest Tracks in the new edition of the guide. So there's now something like well over 40 public trails. This is our most popular publication by far. But why is it getting expensive to print? No dining guide we did dining guide for the first time in 2023. That went very well. That was a pay to play. People paid for advertising and to be in the guide. We're not repeating it, I don't think, in 2024. We'll look at repeating it possibly in 2025 and do it every 2 years. Just because of the amount of work and cost that is involved in. The holiday guide, less tourism, more sort of community support, but we put this sort of small publication together every year that lists all of the holiday events, Christmas holiday events happening across the county, ladies' night shopping that a BIA is doing, Santa Claus parades, Christmas concerts. That is hugely popular. And again, the service we provide is we put it all together across the county. Let me, so you can see. When we get to the website, you'll also see this was one of our most popular pages on the website. Anyway. Talking about the holidays, we do it every November. The Ontario's West Coast Signage Program, great program. We certainly have a lot of conversations around the tourism table, especially with our partner municipalities around wayfinding signage and the lack of wayfinding signage in some of those partner municipalities, but we have 67 of these signs. I'm sure everybody's seen a million of them when you drive around. It's a very popular program, and there's now 57 businesses, tourism businesses that use that signage program. One of the things we get asked a lot about, if it's on a provincial highway, that's not us, that's the TOD's provincial program, and that's very restrictive. They don't allow restaurants to be on their signage program. They have different criteria. Takes a while, we understand, to get a TOD sign if it's on a provincial highway. We also have a weird rule that if you're actually on the highway, you can't be on the sign. Yeah.
Because you're easy to find.
Yeah. Which makes no sense. So like, as the line, you can't have a sign for 21. I think they're just up in. Anyway. Sidebar. Ontario's West Coast.ca, that's our tourism website. We had 53,000 and some odd visits in 2023. That was up 62% in 2022, so significant up. And about 74,000 page views, which is also up. What's important to us and what we focus on a lot, the most popular pages on the website where people are going, significantly it's beaches. That's almost 50% of our people are just looking at the beaches. And then that's followed very closely by events. So, Alex just talked about Maple Mania. I'll talk about a couple other, but like our visitors, aside from the beaches, are really looking for events. One of the things that we've been working on for the last couple of years is the Huron County events calendar, which is on both HuronCounty.ca and on Ontario's West Coast. It's full of a lot of community events, but it's also full of a lot of tourism events and more significant events. That has exploded in the last year. It takes an incredible amount of staff time.
It's crazy.
We have to approve every event for publication. And you can go in one day and there'll be 100 and some odd, and 3 days later, there'll be another 100 and some odd. If you go to the calendar, you will see that there's typically like 6-7 things on every day.
Yeah.
So we do have, it was a goal for a long time to have everything in one spot for users, both local and visitors. So that has pretty much mostly been accomplished, I'm happy to say.
Also be very.
Although it's significant, like it's really. And then as I referenced, the Celebrate the Holidays in Huron was our most popular page, like a lot of locals looking for seasonal events, so, probably not the kind of tourism numbers we would expect, but like, and also big community development, so. Then followed by wineries and breweries and people looking for places where to stay on the coast. I think again, one of the key takeaways is where the people using our website is coming from. Because it overlaps with the Ipsos study. So 91% of our people using the website are coming from Ontario, 31% are coming from the GTA. And so in the Ipsos study last year as well, Southwestern Ontario made up 45% of our visitors, but the GTA made up 41%. So that's a significant change. In about 2017, 2018, that number was about 18% of the GTA made up our visitors. So now the GTA is our secondary market after Southwestern Ontario. It used to be traditionally that, our visitors came from a 1.5 to 2 hour circumference from Huron County, but we were discovered during COVID and it hasn't dropped off. We sort of were watching to see if it would drop off post-COVID and it hasn't. So, and even I think when Alec talked about Maple Mead, the largest group looking at Maple Mead was again from the GTA. So we're in that market. We hear a lot about like, we need to do more marketing at GTA right now, like armed with data saying, don't really, because they are aware of us and they're checking our website, they're following us on social media.
Yeah, just interrupted. If you notice under the USA, Illinois 74% asked for that question at county council, I actually found out the answer to that. And Destination Ontario invested in 2016 and 2017, a lot of into Illinois. And apparently they're still following it. So just so you know.
Okay,
I found that out.
Okay, good to know. I had not heard that Destination Ontario was targeting Illinois, although they always talk to us. They especially like us because of our proximity to Michigan, because they are always looking at getting those US visitors over there.
Yeah, so 2016 and 2017, they did that.
Really targeted.
Yeah.
Clearly it worked. Social media, we have two channels. We have Ontario's West Coast, we have Facebook and Insta that we post almost daily. You should see the stats. We have just over 13,000 followers on Ontario's West Coast on Facebook and about 4,000 followers on Insta. We also do a weekly newsletter. Well, Alec does a weekly newsletter. It's very little work for Rick. The what's happening on Ontario's West Coast, right? So we have 2,500 people who get that email weekly that lists, the events happening across Ontario's West Coast for that week. If you haven't signed up for it, you can do it on our website. Please do. It's a great thing every week to just sort of go like, okay, this is what's happening. Plans, it goes out on Wednesdays so that people have time. Won't talk about October, Maple Mania. I'll skip down to Oktoberfest. 2023 was our second time doing Oktoberfest. We made changes to the program based on our feedback from the wineries and breweries. That they would prefer hop-on, hop-off shuttles to the 13 locations across the county. So we tried doing that in 2013. That was crazy challenging. But it worked out really well for the breweries and wineries. They saw there's a quote there from Sadev from Second Street Light that he had almost over 200 people coming to his business on that day in October. And it wasn't just that they were coming, they were buying, they were leaving with bottles and cases of wine as well. And we heard that from all 13 of them. So very popular event. We did not budget for to do Oktoberfest in 2024, so we probably won't be doing this in 2024. But there is a group out of Bayfield now that are actively working on holding an Oktoberfest event similarly. But it will be in a central location, which we would also like for October of this year. So Oktoberfest will continue to happen, maybe just not administered by us this year. And right after Oktoberfest, I think a week and a half later, we did Feast on the Farm. This is a program offered by the Culinary Tourism Alliance. Used to be a provincial organization that promotes culinary tourism in the province. They went national last year, so now it's a national organization promoting culinary tourism. They do this Feast on the Farm program. It's a sort of pay to play. We work with them. It's a little higher end, so I think we can only accommodate about 150 people each on the public day. And it did sell out and it sold out quite quickly. It featured a menu by 3 Huron County chefs and locally sourced ingredients from 10 of our local food producers. And then, we had 5 of our local beverage also. And it's followed the next day by an industry day for local restaurateurs and chefs to get professional development opportunities. One of the nice things is the executive director of the Culinary Tourism Alliance teaches at George Brown, their culinary tourism program. So they brought down a bus load of George Brown first year students. I think all of them were newcomers, maybe one of them wasn't, and they had only been in Canada since the beginning of September and they'd never been outside the city. So it was an interesting culture shock for them to be outside of Toronto in the country.
On a farm.
On a farm.
Yeah.
And I mean, it was at James Eddington's farm, but it's not like a farm. It's a gentleman's farm. But they were still like, where am I? What's going on here?
Did you say too that it was the only time that you were actually, or that they were actually successful at having an industry event?
Yes, they did 5 Feast on the Farm programs in 2020. And they've done a couple in 2022, and the industry day had always got canceled because of lack of participation. There's a number of factors for that, like, again, as an organization that represents culinary tourism, that they should know that in July and August, no restaurant is taking a day off to do correct. Ours was in October, but also a little more interest from our people. And again, I think that's because we are somewhat more remote from, we're not in Toronto or Kitchener-Waterloo, so that network being able to come together as an industry for a day is more significant. But yeah. So 2024, we've made just highlights. We've made significant changes to Ontario's West Coast. We've certainly made it more mobile friendly. It's easier to use. We've redone our menus. We're doing a lot more topical content in our blog posts. Talking to stakeholders and about how May and June, the early part of the season went. The feedback is that they're seeing high numbers, lots of traffic. Revenue's way down though. So lots of people coming to Huron County, not a lot of people splashing cash. And so, we're watching to see if that trend, now that we've, gone through the Canada Day long weekend, and people start to see more of that, but the accommodations, we're also hearing that they're typically booked up. Like usually if you have it booked by the beginning of May, you're not getting a room or a cottage in Huron County. There's some availability still in August apparently out there, so it could be a bit of a tougher year for tourism. Early days, that's May and June, we'll see what July and August bring. If it stays like this, I think we'll see an uptick.
I agree.
Yeah. So, any questions about that?
Yes.
Enjoy your reports, because they're full of info and funny. I know that the Bayfront group have reached out for maybe some staff or other. So what I'm hearing from this report though is there's not. Did you know that?
Yes. Yeah, we've had meetings with them, so we didn't have anything in the budget this year to do it. We were gonna do it if we could secure external funding. We haven't as of yet.
And I do like that model where, you know, you're still going to all the different wineries and breweries, but then ending up at a central location.
Yes, yeah, so they're working on it.
Thank you.
And staff continues to be involved.
Yeah.
That conversation.
Quick question.
Yeah, go ahead.
It's a great presentation, but how do you feel that we can leverage our beaches for more tourism opportunities? You know, how you can extrapolate that opportunity inland or further, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
you
no
don't
one
leave your
wants to
fastest
sign-
horse in the barn, but how do you ride it?
No one wants to sign on the beach, but getting the beach people up into town and letting them know, like, I live in South Huron, so I'm in Exeter, and we go to Port Blake occasionally. Packed all the time, even on a weekday. We went there right now, there would be like 200 people there. They don't leave. They barbecue there, they spend the whole day there, so they're not going even into Grand Bend, which doesn't really benefit us too much, but like or St. Joseph, they're not going to the winery or brewery, they're not going in for lunch. So trying to get the beach goers that are like the day trippers to come off the, like to, you know, maybe go have lunch at the winery and then come back, right, or stuff like that. Is what we hear, and I know Goderich tourism struggles with that too, that they come and they park at the beach and then they don't leave. Which I get, we kind of grew up that way with my parents.
Yeah, one of the things that I always think about in my mind is that we have to be careful that we don't become over capacity, because we really want people to have a positive experience when they come to Huron County. And I think we're not over capacity right now. We're sort of about where we can handle it, but until the infrastructure gets to the point where we can support more and where the public is ready for us to have more and more and more, we have to take a step our way there. And so, you know, we're probably about where we can handle people coming to our beaches. We can support more people going into our downtowns and going to our local businesses and that sort of thing. So, as Rick says, it's more about that as opposed to marketing our beaches even.
But what do you mean in terms of infrastructure? What needs to be added or what needs to be done?
Well, we definitely need more accommodation. We need more training for people who are coming in from quote unquote way. We're getting there. But that certainly was an issue. Quite. More options, like more of a diversity of options in terms of culinary and the stores that we have, and those kinds of things. And again, I think we'll baby step our way there. We're getting close, but what we don't want to see is what has happened up in Bruce County, where there has been a real backlash against people from away. And so we're in a pretty sweet spot right now. And if we can just continue to gradually improve, then I think it will benefit us and for generations to come.
Oh, that's fair.
We're still struggling to build on that a bit. We're still really struggling with staffing issues.
And so, yeah.
Like in Bayfield, the restaurants are closing their kitchens at 8 o'clock on the weekends, which is the sun hasn't even gone down.
Yeah. And not that I would know this, but finding a bar open.
Yeah.
Like there aren't many, really, right?
Yeah.
The ice cream
Yeah,
shop
I've
is
heard that
at
in the word. You know, like these are the kinds of things that you need to be, like if we tell people come, we gotta make sure that we're ready to,
If you can't get a table, you leave it.
yeah.
Well, we're doing our part to sling the ice cream, so don't worry.
Nice. I think building that
Yes.
to something, another good example of infrastructure that we would need would be even public bathroom. So in Bayfield, for example, we have one public bathroom. It's not enough, or people don't want to come far off the beach to go all the way downtown to go to the bathroom. We see a lot of urinating in our front yards in the summer. You know, you get on the long weekends especially, it's parallel parking all across the front yards, and then people just go behind the car to pee, but behind your car is right in front of my house. So public bathrooms. One thing though, a good example that Hasselman is doing is they have a program now called Après Beach instead of Après Ski, and they encourage you, come up off the beach. We don't care what you're wearing. So leave your bathing suit on, stay sandy. We've got bocce ball courts, we've got pizza, we've got wine, and you look out over the wine and you play bocce ball and you sit around in your bathing suit, which I think is a really cool example. I love Après Beach, it's really smart.
Yeah, and they have accommodations.
And a bathroom. Yes.
That's what.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, like, it's not just, I don't think the beaches, like the beach center in Clinton. We bring in a tremendous number of people. But they come and they go and they don't go downtown and spend their money, right? And we struggle with that. We've, put a lot of money into our park to try and get them from, Arena Reach Casino all in one area, but to get them to come downtown and, we continually try new things to get that to happen. But we don't have accommodation, and, restaurants are closed by, 7:00, 11, right? And it's like not enough. So that's the type of thing we need to do, but it's hard. I'd like to see private enterprise do it all, but just doesn't seem to be happening. And I think the same thing, there's a lot of people who go to Cowbell, but they seem to go there and leave again, right? They don't go to downtown and spend money throughout the area. And the same with the old mill up there. They pull in a tremendous amount of people, but kind of one and done, right? I think we have that issue right across the county.
Great. Well, thank you, Rick. We have a motion that Huron County Economic Development Board receive the annual tourism report by Rick Singer, Economic Development Officer, dated July 4th, 2024, as presented for information. I'm moving the seconder then, Tina, second by Derek. Discussion on the motion. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. And so moving on to 9.3 is the 2024 SLED program funding that we went through.
Right, so SLED program, that's a program delivered by the Economic Development Board. This is your program. So we had, I think, 23 applications this year for the SLED program. People can apply up to, so municipalities and not-for-profit organizations can apply for up to $10,000 for a project. 23 applications in 2024. We met on April 22nd to review the applications, and Brian and Lynn from the board were so kind as to make those difficult decisions on who got the funding. In the end, 16 projects were funded. We have $100,000 to give out for SLED every year. $90,000 of that comes from the Economic Development Board's budget, and $10,000 of that comes from Community Futures Huron. Typically, there would have been a jury member from Community Futures Huron, but this year there was a bit of a miscommunication, and that person was out of the country in one of the applications. So Community Futures is fine with the decisions that were made in terms of who got them. So the 16 organizations and municipalities that received funding, Center for Rural Creativity in Blythe received funding to go towards their Rural Talks to Rural conference that will be held this October in Blythe. I think this is their fourth or fifth time, say fifth.
Around 5.
Yeah, they're holding this. They do it every second year. And it's very popular. Eat Local Huron, if you don't know who they are, it's an online retailer that specializes in local food. They represent maybe, I want to say about 40 to 50 Huron County producers and growers. And you can buy online and they will deliver it right to your house. It's a beautiful service. But they're finding that not enough people know about, they're sort of stagnated with the number of users. So they were funded to do a big marketing campaign to let, and that has been happening, and I've seen it everywhere. It's stalking online, it's on radio, it's they're doing an excellent job of making local people aware of that service, which is great. Exeter BIA was funded to put in to address some security concerns. By putting in some cameras at some of the businesses, there's issues at the economic development roundtable where we meet with a number of the BIs and chambers. We're hearing this from every community and every BI chamber that they're talking about security cameras and how to deal with security issues for the businesses. So this is now turning into a really great pilot project for those other BIAs and chambers to sort of watch what Exeter BIA does and whether it helps address the situation or not. To be determined. Friends of Hullet are hosting some forestry industry workshops with a number of those different forestry stakeholders to look at how we can also market it as an asset in terms of foraging, but also, you know, how we're sustainably harvesting our forests. So supporting that sector. Gateway Center for Excellence in Rural Health received funding to support their SHARP program, which is a skilled healthcare attraction and retention program. And that includes their annual summer camp where they have secondary school students come for a week and they get to sort of try out different things within the healthcare sector. And that program has been hugely successful. I think they've had quite a number of camp attendees go on to post-secondary and even return as healthcare workers. Goderich Little Theater, we're supporting, they're supporting a fall production of Streamliners, which is a local story about a vaudeville kind of musical group from Huron County in World War II that was well known, but is kind of a lost story now. So that's being turned into a production this fall. Huron County Pride, we help support that event. Huron Manufacturing Association received some funding to provide local safety and certification training for their business members so that their employees did not have to travel outside of Huron County to receive that training and certification. Municipality of Blue Water is doing a leadership and skill development training for youth 12 to 16. It's a week-long program. Those students will come and they will learn about, you know, really what they're trying to do is create a feeder system for their summer program coordinator so that they have student staff who can run their summer programs in the future. But quite a few of the municipal staff are also coming to talk about here's what our council does, here's how. So they're also learning about how their local government operates and what careers in municipal government might look like. Really like that program. Municipality of Central Huron, they've done a lot of work over the last few years in becoming an accessible shopping destination. Our funding in particular this year through SLED was to promote Clinton and Central Huron as an accessible shopping. They've done the infrastructure work, still more to do, I understand, but like trying to let the general public know that they are an accessible shopping destination. The word out there. Municipality of Huron East is creating a number of videos highlighting the manufacturing industries that they have in Huron East. And those will be promoted on their website. C4 BIA, we have 250th celebrations coming up in 2025, Clinton and C4. So some beautification projects happening in C4. specifically around their garbage bins, they were in rough shape, but they found a way to combine planters and the garbage thing, and they're quite clever. They look really pretty because they have a flower like pot on the top, and so it doesn't look like a, really kind of, I don't wanna say eyesore, but like, it's an attractive garbage receptacle on Main Street now. I've seen them. The town of Goderich has got support to do more work in developing their salted brand into a year-round experience. We supported the festival last year. That's moved to Labor Day weekend this year, but they're now looking at like having audio tours and different resources to promote the salt mine and the salted brand and that bit of the Huron County heritage year-round to visitors through the tourism booth. The township of North Huron received some support for a cricket team and to buy some cricket spring. This is a partnership program with our local immigration partnership that they host a cricket day. That's already happened. It rained, I think, most of the day, but it still was very popular. They do have a cricket team now up in North Huron that plays regularly, so we're supporting that again, while the community initiative, but providing those kind of recreational activities. Then Aikman House Foundation is working on a new covered pavilion. If you know the house at all, the property abuts the cemetery, so they will provide that pavilion as well for interment services for people to have receptions after interment services, as well as use it for their own programming. And then the wineries and breweries, there are 6 wineries, 6 breweries, 1 cidery, so there are 13, lucky 13 of them that have decided that they're exploring the idea of like forming their own industry group within Huron County. We provided some funding for them to do an event that will happen this November to see, how they get along working and promoting together the group of 13. I would say that economic development staff is working with them a lot to facilitate the formation of that organization. It is ongoing. That's what was funded in 2020.
Well, I can certainly say from sitting through all the applications, there's awesome applications and there is a great need. As Tina would say, if there's ever an opportunity to expand the budget, we could certainly make use of it because they're all very deserving. And the one thing that I would say is the staff do an amazing job organizing these applications and leading us less than sharp people through that all those applications, because it's owners. It takes a real skill to put that all together, and so to the staff to do that.
Rick does the lion's share of that work.
Yes.
And Rick also coaches applicants. So because we don't judge as staff, we're able to coach the applications. And we look at it in a way to help some of our organizations get their feet wet with funding applications and learn how to respond so they can go on to bigger and different varied funding applications, but have some skill under their belt. So Rick also does a really excellent job at that too.
And that really helps the applications, right? That's what it is.
Yeah, making, I think, great projects and, I agree with Tina, about trying to expand the funding. But I'm involved with a few organizations that include people from the States, and over there, they seem to have access to so many different foundations. And I just wonder, should we have a look and see if any foundations in Canada might support something like this? This seems to drive their economy so much over
There's so much.
Sunset Foundation.
No, I think the American, because again, I have a lot of friends who work in arts and culture in the States, and the tax incentives are so much greater for charity and donations in in America that that's why they have more foundations. The Community Futures Huron, there is a subscription service that gives you access to all of those, the various foundations. I think it's quite expensive anyway. They used to always pay the $1,000 and some odd dollars to have it and then would invite like not-for-profits to have access to it. They've done that again this year, just last month. So they are inviting people again to say, like, if you want to use the paid directory to do research on foundations that might support your initiative. So we do have that resource available to us. So looking around, supports economic development as a Canadian foundation.
That might be one of those things too, where there are good connections on the board. So if there's a foundation out there, somebody on the board. Great question. One reason breweries in Huron County get registered nonprofit.
Yeah.
You just think about that because, yeah, the municipality are registered nonprofit to receive the money, right?
Yes. They're working towards it. Part of the funding is them working towards that.
Okay, I wouldn't be surprised to get pushback. Maybe nobody looks at this stuff anyway, but maybe that's a fight.
Comments, questions?
Just if I could, Mr. Chair, just a tremendous program, so many initiatives. And I know it takes a lot of work on behalf of staff.
Right, then, so we have a motion. Chair and members of the Economic Development Board received a report from the Economic Development Officer dated July 4th, 2024, titled 2024 SLED Program Funds 16 Projects for Information. I'm moving the second year for that. Lynn, any more discussion on that? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Great, thanks, Sharon. So we are down to 9.4. The small business enterprise funding update. Turn it over to our director.
Mr. Chair, through you to the board, you may recall that we came to you a little while ago and asked for a letter to help support the continuation of the small business enterprise centers because there was some concern that the province may choose to not move forward with that program in the future. So an update since that time, we had individual meetings with NEDCAT where they interviewed both Brittany Wise and myself to talk about the value of the program, possible changes for the program, the needs of the program. And then they came back in the provincial budget this spring, they added additional funds to this fiscal year. And our contract ends at the end of March 2025. So at the end of this fiscal year, they added funds both for this fiscal year, pardon me, and the next fiscal year, which we don't have a contract for yet. So our funding increased annually by 34,600. It is specified that there'll be 3 additional starter company plus grants, $5,000 each, and 1 additional summer company grant of 3,000. And then some additional administrative dollars. That's what makes up that 34,600. There is no ask for any sort of matching or increased contribution from the county. So we feel very excited that we got the additional funding, but also we are no longer concerned about our existence moving forward and working on a new TPA because they've already given us money for a year that we don't have a TPA for yet. So we're confident that although the program may undergo some changes, the things we noted is we need to be doing more work on the sustaining, not just the new businesses, not just the starting, but on the sustaining and also on the transition and succession planning element, especially in our rural communities. That was a large portion of our feedback. So we're looking forward to that TPA or to that application process coming out for the next TPA, but we're feeling quite confident that the program will continue. So that's the update for the board. Just wanted to let you know and thank for your letter supporting the program.
Comments, questions?
That's fantastic, because that was pretty stressful. I mean, we didn't know,
Yeah.
right? And there's so much, I think, involved with through step with the office,
Yes.
especially with business transitions. And, we just saw another business in downtown Goderich close, right? And it's the rec league, so it's not good.
Yeah, and that's that transition that is so important. And we're working with community futures here on an app that will help with that, or some programming that will help with that.
Great. So good to know we can. Another 18 months or so.
Yeah, and the 3,000 that we got for summer company would have allowed us with the McCall McBain funding to have 11 summer company participants. We were successful in recruiting 10. So fully using our original funding and the McCall McBain funding, and in conversations with our MedCat analyst, they will allow us to move that 3,000, not this 3,000. They will allow us to move 3,000 into the starter company plus program. So we'll have additional funding on top of the 15 moving into that program as well. So we will be able to utilize all grant funding, and we're thrilled. We're thrilled with 10 summer company participants. We're really excited, and we've got some really good quality summer businesses starting.
Thanks. And the additional start company plus grants too. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Right, then, we've got a motion that the Economic Development Board received a report by Director Vicky Lass of Economic Development dated July 4th, 2024, titled CTPA and funding update as presented for information. I have a mover and a seconder for that. By Tina, seconded by Derek. Any more discussion on the motion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Very good. Thank you. So 9.5 Film Incentive Coalition of Ontario. Turn it over to Brad.
So, it's a bit of background. For the last, I'd say 3 or 4 years, there's been a group called the Southwestern Film Office Group that represents about 25 or 30 film offices, municipalities in Southwestern Ontario that meet fairly regularly to discuss about and share best practices about attracting film production into your municipality. Everybody's pretty much there except for the GTA. They're doing fine, they're their own thing. And there's different levels in there. So there's people like Hamilton are represented there, as well as Cambridge, that are seeing a huge amount of film production happening in their municipalities versus, London, ourselves, Perth, Waterloo even, that are seeing very little film production happening in their municipalities. So part of that, so the conversation has been like, well, is around the tax incentive program. So I think most people know that the province offers a very good tax incentive program. By the way, film has exploded. They're building 2 new studios, one in Hamilton and one in GTA, to accommodate the amount of film. Like it's nuts how much film is happening. And again, the province has worked very hard to make that happen. They have a film office in LA. So part of what the industry has been saying for the last 2 years is that they need to push productions outside of Hamilton and the GTA because there's just no more capacity within those municipalities. And something that happens quite regularly with film is everybody loves it at first, and then they learn to hate it really fast when your streets are closed all the time. And you can't go in businesses. It's a nuisance. If you've ever seen a film set on location, there's like a minimum of 30 trucks and trailers that also park on the street. Anyway, so they need to start, Hamilton and GTA are like, we need to push this out. So part of that is targeting the tax incentive program. So there is a 35% tax incentive in place in Ontario for productions that shoot in Ontario. You get an additional 10% if you leave the GTA. And so that additional 10% is why there's as much film production happening in Hamilton as there is currently in the GTA. And that's why one of the film studios is being built by Netflix in Hamilton, because that's typically where they shoot. Because they get that extra 10% and like how far is it really? It's convenient. What's gone on in the last year is that in 2023, the government of Ontario has invested 11.4 million into a northern film production. No coincidence that Minister Fideli is from North Bay, so they're investing heavily. And I've heard him speak to this thing at the tourism summit of saying, you know, and at the EDCO, they've lost a lot of their natural resources industry and they're replacing it with film. That's a priority for the province currently. At the same time, the Eastern Ontario mayors and wardens have collectively lobbied the province as well to invest 25 million annually in their region's film and television industry. Which means that Southwestern Ontario is starting to get left behind, that the productions being pushed out of GTA and Hamilton are now going north and east because they're following the money, and that's where the investment from the province is coming from. So this group, made up of Southwestern Ontario film offices, is looking to, the province did announce in this year's budget that they were looking at revising the tax incentive. So the door was open a bit. British Columbia has a similar tax incentive program. They do the 35% and then 10 if you go outside of like Vancouver proper to the region. But then if you go to Vancouver Island or north, you get an additional 6% on top of that, so that there's even more incentive to push even further out into the province. This group would like to lobby the government as they're looking at reviewing the tax incentive program to introduce a similar type of program in Ontario, so that it's 35 if you're in GTA, it's an extra 10 if you're in Hamilton and area. And then if you go into Southwestern Ontario or Eastern Ontario, or even the north, you would get an extra 6%. Because to help encourage film productions to migrate more into the province, further into the province. To do that, they've been talking to a lobbyist group. They've been, coming up with a strategy to undertake that. In terms of the cost to do this over the next year, they were asking for a financial contribution from partners of $1,000 to $2,000 maximum to help, pay costs for lobbyists, but also like to do the research and have a seat at that table. So our request today is to see if the Economic Development Board would approve an expenditure up to $2,000 for us to be part of that coalition and have a seat at the table. Any questions? That's what's happening.
Questions? Is that something that as a board we can do through our budget?
Yes.
I think this is awesome. You want to attract more of this, and I would be more than happy to make that motion. Here, Mr. Chair.
So moved as printed in the agenda. Seconder?
This is what our budget is for, right? To
Yep.
fund boots on the ground activities like this. Absolutely. It's great.
Questions, discussion? Move the question then. All those in favor of the motion? Any opposed? It's carried. It's a good opportunity.
It's excellent, and I like that we're working with about 30 other municipalities that are in the same position as us. I think there's strength in numbers.
Good. So moving on, 9.6, economic development update, page 4. Rick?
I'm just opening the floor to any questions for you, Mr. Chair. That's report.
No reading last night there.
It was a busy spring.
That's where I saw the birth announcement.
Uh,
Next other stuff.
Just to let you know, the artist rendering from the Thrive Summit that two young artists from Peach did throughout the course of the day. We are going to be mounting it on that pole so that it isn't lost. That doesn't get hidden away somewhere. So we're in the process of just looking at the most efficient and effective way to do that.
Does that same report go to county council?
Yes, county council has received this.
It's a shame to see all of that. I think it's just us.
And the other thing that we have started doing on request from some of our municipal partners, in conversations that we're having with some of our municipal partners, they are still wondering what we do, what we are doing, how they can coordinate with us. It's all very positive conversations. But what we do now is once this goes to county council and the county council meeting is finished, that afternoon, it gets circulated to the clerks and treasurers with an invitation for them to share with their councils or however they see fit. So in the case of ACW, I've been doing some strategic planning, action planning work with them. And it now goes to their clerk and it gets shared with that committee and is their choice whether they share it with their council as well. But that's an example of where it's being distributed out to those working on economic development. So they can see what's going on and it can help to enhance the work that they do and offer opportunities for alignment and collaboration. So it gets circulated the same day that council receives it, but after the council meeting. So it goes out immediately to the clerks and treasurers list.
Yeah, it does come conceptually here, and then I did actually have a question at my council meeting about the transit feasibility study.
Yes.
And I couldn't remember, is this the, I'll call it Grand Bend group that's coming up Bayfield and Goderich? And the question was, can we expand that to something with
Okay, so there's a program open right now that helps to fund feasibility studies for transit. So we have put in an application to get that funding. We also have funding available in our budget this year to do that. So we're just waiting to hear back on the success of that funding. And yes, it would be to look at a transit system for the county, but already the Lambton Shores Group is providing transit into Goderich, Exeter, Bayfield, Grand Bend. I think that's mainly where it is right now. So we would be looking at a collaboration in that feasibility study. What do we need where and what groups will be servicing? And we do have some historical work that's been done on who needs the service and how they need it, but it would further that and then lead towards recommendations, and we bring those then to board and council to say this is what the feasibility study recommended for the county, and then repeat that moving forward to either an expansion of the Lambton services or the develop. I like partnering. So they have a really their coordinator is really active on the ground with their transit system and very responsive. And their system, when I had my initial conversation with Susan Mills, their coordinator last November or December, they were only about 300 rides away from being fully sustainable, which outdistances some of the other rural systems that started at the same time. So she's been really quite helpful and supportive in us moving forward with this application. So we would be able to coordinate with what they're already details. But we're looking to get the $50,000 worth of funding that we applied for to be able to do that feasibility study.
The other thing I've seen, and I forget the name of, but it's a northern transportation group. They seem to have it figured out to Northern Ontario. And I didn't know whether there's ever been any conversations with them to bring it down into this area, but they're doing very rural and remote areas. And like I say, they seem to have it figured out.
So as in far north, not like First Peninsula North, but far north is, are there?
Yeah, I know they come from North Bay and they stop at like universities. Way, and so those students can get home for the weekend or whatever.
Okay.
Saw a presentation.
We
Conference
haven't,
sometime about it.
we haven't had that conversation
Yeah.
yet, but we will. Yes. There's actually also a transportation service that's been running out of Milverton for a number of years, and it's for the Baptist community. And it's privately owned and operated. And so it's another model that we can take a bit of a look at. It's larger vans is what they run, and it serves that community, get them to medical appointments, but also into the St. Jacob's Farmers Market out of that region. So it's kind of a little hidden gem, but works really well for that community. And that is a community that we need to address, especially in the northern part of the county when we're looking at transportation. There needs to be able to get to they have an informal system.
But I do agree with you that haven't figured out because there's no sense going making the same mistakes.
Well, and one of the successes of the Lambton Shores service is that very active and skilled coordinator, and daily is fielding calls about that system. So even when we move forward to look at what are the staff resources that it would take to do that, Burke County also has one dedicated person for their system as well. There might be an opportunity to partner because that system is further ahead and more mature. There might be an opportunity to utilize that skill base. So, lots of things to look at. So at this moment, waiting to hear back from that funding program. We have heard it's undersubscribed, so we hope that's true, and we are fairly positive, but posted what's happening there.
Comments? So we do have a motion available to us that the chair and members of the economic board receive a report by Vicky Lass, economic development director, dated July 4th, 2024, titled Development Department May 2024 update as presented for information. I think Jamie was moving. Who would like to second that motion? Again, any more discussion on the motion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you, Nikki. So then we're moving on to 10. See, we have 10.1, 10.2, financial statements ending March 31st, 2024. Then there's a motion for each one of 10.2. Any questions, discussion on the financial statements?
Yeah, I think we should always ask a question. My little statements for just me. I guess you on staff and doing direct questions to you. Okay, is there anything in there that you think is a concern or that we should know about? Like I saw the small deficit, but it looks like an offset between part-time and full-time staff, so no big deal. But anything else in there that you are concerned about that you think should be on our radar?
No, I don't, as far as the department budget goes for the economic development board. You've allocated 2,000 of that 30,000 that you had for programs or projects. Last year, you used it for the videos for housing. So I just want to make you aware that you don't want to get to the end of the year and not have used that for a worthwhile project. So you do have some money to spend there, and as we move forward with the striking of the committees, doing that committee work and also doing the strategic planning. Keep that in mind.
Like, our next board meeting is October 3rd, and then our fiscal runs till.
Runs till in December. So we have some money to spend. We do have some money to spend.
And are there exciting things coming up that you think we might want to spend on? I'm not asking for details, but.
I think we can always come up with ways to spend it.
Okay.
Want to do Oktoberfest?
You know, it's not, we have $28,000. We've already done it, you know. sitting here in October going, hey, guys, we have to now manufacture $28,000 worth of stuff, and then we come up with stuff that's not that important. That's why we should ask some questions about the financial statements. I don't disagree, yeah. Okay, then, I'd like to make a motion that we take a look at putting some funding into the October Fest program again. Can I do that?
I bet.
Decide with me for a second, so,
Just that's for the report, so.
okay.
I've heard 80,000.
I know, but
Okay.
sometimes it still doesn't.
Could we make a
And I
motion
suggest
that
that you, we make, request a staff report.
potential
Yes,
projects
potential
for the
projects.
fiscal year?
You want Oktoberfest or?
No,
I think, yeah, more than.
More than Oktoberfest. There's opportunity, for example, there would also be opportunity in that business succession and transition planning. And I know that Brit is intending that your working group will start their work August or September. And there's opportunity there. There's some other opportunities and we'd be happy to bring your work.
and we certainly trust staff to have that knowledge that we can or don't have as board members. So not to be too restrictive, but we should.
There are always opportunities that pop up after the budget process, so.
Just for clarification, so there's this, the $28,000 that you're talking about. We have a meeting in October, and then our next meeting is when? After October, is it, is it December? So if we need to use this money up by the end of December, we really should be looking at making decisions at the October meeting. Okay. Yep.
So Tina made that motion. Correct?
Yes.
I need a seconder then before we have any more discussion. The one thing I'll say is that 30,000 is a transfer from reserves. So do we have the opportunity, if there's a carryover, to transfer to the following year?
You can make an ask.
Yeah, if a
You can
project
make an ask, that doesn't mean it's gonna happen. In a motion.
So obviously
Requesting
we asked.
council,
Sure.
yeah, you put a motion requesting council. That doesn't mean they're gonna say yes.
You need justification.
It's because you didn't spend the reason justification.
Well, I don't want to just manufacture a place to put money, right? That's not what we're here. But there is need and how do we best utilize it?
So an example might be, and correct me if I'm wrong, but say you started a succession planning project. That the bulk of it was being done this year, but there was some work to be done the following year, you might be able to carry some over on a continuing project. But
Yeah, that would be earmarked in there, so like, I don't know, like these treasurers do this weird stuff, but you would have that part just, yeah. So I know the accessibility committee, they had a big project they were planning and it took years to fund it, so. They had a couple years over COVID where they weren't doing a lot, so they just stashed that money into a reserve, they asked permission and the project is gonna be this much money and they built it up to that. So rather than ask for a big jump.
So the other question is, so say staff come back and say, let's put some of that money in Oktoberfest, at our October meeting. Oktoberfest, I assume, is in October.
Yep.
So-
Tight.
How fast?
Oktoberfest might not make the cut.
Yeah.
but Sure there are.
All right, so we have a motion on the floor to,
We could,
oh,
we could pass another motion to,
just do it.
You have a motion on the floor that you're gonna deal with first. And if you want to do a different motion, I would be happy for that.
We made this meeting.
You could. You
That
could.
is very nice, you're walking on.
Pretty sure the board was making a motion
She's
to
going to
adjourn and that's
Scotland.
done.
Why I stay on the other side of the table.
Yeah.
Yes,
You were a kick for 4 years.
Right, so we have a motion then to refer to
Did you have a
staff.
question?
Yeah, I was just wondering if in that October report, if we could have this year, maybe potential funding requirements, but if there is any potential longer term horizons that you see, that we have a spot to earmark, because from what I'm understanding is we can't stash it in reserves just for the sake of stashing it in reserves, but if you have longer term visions, then that would be nice.
So, motion is moved by Tina, seconded by Galen, Huron County Economic Development Board, request a staff report on potential projects for 2024 and 2025. Don't know.
Any more discussion on that?
Yeah, I just wonder, I guess I can speak to it since I'm the seconder. Should we, I mean, in October, we've got very limited time. I think we should include into that we do fund.
Do that next.
Yeah,
That's-
So we're gonna call the question then, all those in favor of the current motion? Opposed? So now we will include the motion. Providing funds for Oktoberfest. What dollar figure do you see that fund?
I would say 5 is comfortable. I wouldn't go above 5.
Up to
And-
5.
Yeah, up to 5.
And may I just add, so when you say 5 would be comfortable to fund it, is it to support the group that's working out of Bayfield?
Yes. Yeah,
Like, just a
so,
few
so
more
we would,
details.
we would not do a second Oktoberfest. We would continue to work with them, and so we would just need like the content, skin in the game. And yeah, be more part of the decision-making process.
Just seat at the table.
Yes, right? And I think that, you know, like everything else, it's a struggle to find funding, so it helps ensure that the event actually does happen.
Right, so who would like to make a motion?
I'll figure it out.
I'll second. This is up to 5,000.
Better here.
Huron County Economic Development Board approved the allocation of up to $5,000 to support the Bayfield Oktoberfest event.
Any more discussion on the motion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried.
We need the financial statements too. Motion to adjourn.
So we have the ability to combine the motion from 10.1 and 10.2. So the motion will be the draft financial statements for the month ending March 31st and May 31st, 2024. Seconder for that. Dina? Anybody else? Seconder, Derek? Any more discussion on that motion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Very good. That's great. So, moving on then, nothing for 11, 12 future meeting topics. Do we have anything to go on the table? So our next meeting then is Thursday, October 3rd at 9 AM right here. And can I have a second one then to adjourn the meeting? By Jamie, second by Swear again. All those in favor? Opposed? There. Thank you, everyone, for your participation. A good meeting.
Wonderful trip.
Get that contact.
Yeah.
I'm not.
Yeah.
You might have found this. Yes, but I think
There's 4 of them.
No,
Yeah,
and-
no, I think it's. He actually set up, I think, I just.
Ryan.
Oh,
Ryan.
yeah.
He was
A mile digester, I think.
Yeah.
Really?
And maybe it was.
He was kind of quoting this way, and he was actually, yeah. Very prosperous. It's going to be, everybody got scared away by that. But he was